Get your brooms out because Scottie Barnes and the Toronto Raptors went sweeping on Super Bowl Sunday. Let's talk about it.
This is the Raptors Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Toronto Raptors. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this episode of the Raptors Postcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network coming to your team every day. And we're coming to you live after the Raptors 122-104 win against the Indiana Pacers on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Locked On Podcast feed. I'm Zulfi, Sheikh, credentialed journalist covering the Raptors and the NBA for over 2 years with outlets like Sportsnet and Raptors Republic. And now I'm one of your humble hosts covering the Raptors after each and every game. And with me is Duane Notice, a.k.a. Dino, professional basketball player and analyst. Duane has represented Canada. He's been part of the Raptors system with the 905, and he's still hooping professionally in leagues like the CEBL. And on tonight's show, we're going to talk about a quality win led by who else but Scottie Barnes, the All-Star. We'll talk about our turning point where Scottie bullied the Pacers in the third quarter, get some thoughts from our resident pro in a segment we like to call Take Notice, and then we'll wrap things up by handing out our player of the game. And Duane, this was, like I said, a very quality win for the Raptors. They sweep the Indiana Pacers for just the third time in franchise history. It's the first time they've done it in 25 years. I think it's the first time since the post-championship season where they've swept 5 different teams already. So obviously the Raptors are playing some good basketball. But this was a rock fight early on. It was a bit of an ugly first half. I think both teams were shooting under 45% in the first half. But then come after halftime, Scottie Barnes basically said, team, jump on my back. We got this. He finishes with 22 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 4 blocks. Trace Jackson-Davis makes his debut. He finishes with a double-double. I thought he looked good as well. And ultimately, the Raptors improved to 32-22. They're now 3-1 on this 5-game homestand, and the Pacers lose their 4th straight. So I know there's a lot there, a lot of good eventually. But what are your initial reactions after the Raptors game here?
I felt like it was a great win, Z. It felt like an all-hands-on-deck type of win. The atmosphere was pumping throughout the arena. The crowd was into it. Everybody was feeling good. But the first half, you already mentioned it. The adjective you described it was ugly. And I thought it reminded me of the mid-early 2000s, the score, how it was so low at halftime, hovering around 50 points. But, I mean, we knew this was going to happen because both of these teams are so versatile on the defensive end, right? They have length. They're able to really do well when it comes to guarding the ball with high pressure. And I think that because both teams are disciplined on the defensive end and they give that token ball pressure and they're in passing lanes and they make the entry passes difficult, it allows for the offense to kind of struggle sometimes. So I don't think it was an instance of bad offense more so than it was just two teams gutting it out on the defensive end. But the Raptors did a great job after halftime. Like I saw Matt Bonner and them talk about it. They don't know what type of speech that Darko gave, but whatever he did inspired it might have been the gladiator speech that Russell gave in the movie, because whatever he did to inspire his team, it worked, and they came out making adjustments, and we saw them do that, and they ran away with it. And obviously there was an injury. We hate seeing that in basketball, and that kind of was a momentum shift for the Pacers as well when they were trying to come back. But man, the Raptors just did everything they had to do. They filled all the boxes, they checked all the boxes, and they stuck to the game plan and got it done.
Yeah, you mentioned the injury. We're obviously hoping for the best for Johnny Murphy. He's a very talented young player. He's a high flyer. Landed a bit awkwardly. He left this game, so hopefully it's nothing too serious. The Raptors also lost Colin Murray-Boyles to injury. He's been dealing with that thumb issue. He left, I believe, in the second quarter with that thumb sprain, and we'll have to wait to see if there's an update on him after this game and in moving into the All-Star break. And before we move on to that third quarter where things really did change for the Raptors and Scottie Barnes led the way, I did want us to make sure we touched on the bench performances a little bit because I know they're a bit overshadowed here. But again, a guy like Sandro Mamukelashvili, he led the Raptors with 13 points in the first half. He finishes with 17 on 6 of 9 shooting. The Raptors had made only 5 threes in the first half. 3 of them had come from Mamu. He was great. Actually, all 5 of their threes were from bench players. So Mamu was giving them good minutes. Jamal Shed was good, orchestrating a little bit. Again, Trace Jackson-Davis in his debut finishes with 10 and 10. I thought he fit into the system really well. He was very active. Grady Dick finishes with 8 points on 3 of 6 shooting. And I know that doesn't stand out like crazy, but my goodness, his activity in this, like his very first pass he caught in this game was he just like subbed on and blitzed down the middle of the floor. Now he missed the layup, but he just was like a bullet coming out of a gun. And then later in this game, he obviously has that really nice dunk where he finishes really strong. So the bench guys in this game were quality for the Raptors. And I just wanted to make sure we take a minute to give those guys love, because I do think they were important for keeping the Raptors in it in that first half.
Yeah, they're extremely vital. I mean, the bench points, but also the bench production, right? So you talk about the bench a lot, but a guy like Jacoby Walter, I know he started today, but we usually assume that he's on the bench. He comes off the bench a lot. He did an outstanding job as well, man. His ball pressure was immaculate. The way he was able to just pressure guys like Andrew Nembhard, who usually plays better, but I think because of Jacoby Walter's peskiness, it kind of got to him. Same thing with Pascal and the other guard, Shepard, etc. But man, I want to give Jacoby Walter his flowers for his effort tonight, because he did not back down. He was into the ball. He was mirroring the basketball whenever the offensive player picked it up, shadowing it. He did a great job of rotating. I just thought that he was just on his, P's and Q's today. But yes, I think Jackson is a great pickup for the Raptors. Initially, I was a little hesitant and reluctant, but man, Jackson's game is pretty impressive because he's coming from the Golden State system. So we already know he understands the culture of basketball and how to play basketball the right way. It's been introduced to him. And then obviously the family that he comes from, he knows how to play basketball. It's there mentally for him. You don't have to call a set for him. I always love players like that who thrive in those type of environments, because he does all of the little things. And his pursuit for rebounding the rock, I think, is super special, and it's something that is very, very good to watch. And I think the Raptors needed that going forward, to have a guy that's very physical, a presence that could, also hold his own on the block, but also be a little athletic too as well. We saw a couple of dunks, a couple of nice moves. So again, for him to be kind of a rim protector, but also plug up the middle until, we get a guy like Jakob Poeltl back, I think is going to be tremendous for the Raptors.
Yeah, you mentioned Trayce Jackson-Davis and how he fits in because of the caliber of basketball he comes from. And I think that's going to be super important. That's why the Raptors were willing to take this extended tryout, if you want to call it that, with him. He's the first Raptor to post a double-double in his debut since Kawhi Leonard in that championship season. So that's it's pretty good company to be in if you're Trayce Jackson-Davis. And you also mentioned the job that Jacoby Walter did on Andrew Nembhard. Nembhard finishes with 10 points on 4 of 18 shooting, 4 turnovers. And I think a big adjustment in the second half, like you mentioned, was Darko putting Jacoby Walter on Andrew Nembhard. Obviously, CMB is hurt. He's not starting. Jacoby Walter inserts and starts the second half. And you see the impact that he had on this Pacers team, on Andrew Nembhard specifically. So again, we wanted to show these bench guys their flowers. I know the Raptors bench can have their ups and downs. Their minutes can be spotty here or there, but they're incredibly vital for what this team needs to accomplish. And tonight, they made all the difference in this game. But the guy that made the biggest difference was undoubtedly Scottie Barnes. And I think it's time we talk about him in his special third quarter.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
All right, Duane, I think if anyone watched this game, they know this is where the game changed. The Raptors came out of halftime with a 2-point deficit. Now, they start the third quarter on an 8-0 run, and right away, Scottie Barnes, his fingerprints were all over that. During that span, he had a block, a steal, a layup, and an and-one dunk. And then after that, he just decided that, nobody on the Pacers can guard me in the middle, and nobody can guard me against the spin. He gets Johnny Furphy on a bit of a drive, spins past him, and-one dunk. Again, we hope Furphy's okay. A couple plays later, he muscles past Pascal, spins, he misses, but he grabs his own offensive rebound. Again, the activity puts it right back up. And then a couple plays later, Pascal scores, and Scottie says, no. This is my building now. I'm taking over. He goes, just beelines to the basket, finishes with a lefty. And then a couple plays later, he does the thing again where he spins and dunks it on somebody. And it's just the intentionality, the focus. I truly believe that Scottie Barnes takes this matchup personally for some reason with Pascal Siakam. He mentioned after the game, I have a lot of love and respect for Pascal. He's my guy. I was a rookie when he was here. But I just think he plays with more of an edge. And in that third quarter, where the Raptors end up winning the quarter by 18 points, Scottie Barnes had 13 points on 6 of 7 shooting, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks. That is an entire game's performance Scottie Barnes put up just in that third quarter. That was special, man.
Yeah, it was super special, but it's testament to the Raptors and what they do in the third quarter, right? Another 40-plus point for a third quarter for them and their efforts coming out. But Scottie is super special. We saw RJ have the nice putback, and then after that, Scottie really took over the game. You mentioned it, but he was an unstoppable force going downhill. You know the saying, sometimes your idols become your rivals. So for a guy like Scottie, who was a rookie and obviously being mentored by Pascal Siakam, you can kind of see the similarities in their game in a sense. You talk about that spin move. That is something that Siakam used to utilize a lot when he was on the Raptors going downhill. But now Scottie kind of implemented his game. And we saw that nice spin cycle to the dunk. He yammed it on someone. Welcome to your Kodak moment with the finish of the posterizer of the defender. But attacking the rim in a variety of ways, right? Nice low pickup with the left-hand finish and just a super strong finishes in transition, playing through the contact. Yes, he was complaining to the ref about being fouled, and he was. Honestly, on those replays, you saw them hitting his arm. But I love the fact that he did not allow that to determine how he played on the other end. He still was doing his thing on defense. But even the offensive rebounds and having the foresight to kick it out to a guy like Quickly to make those buckets, I think was impactful for them during this game. But his unselfishness is something that we continue to harp on, and it shines. And it shines even in the moments where he flips into another gear and he starts seeking his own offense. And that's what we saw, him just being aware of understanding, I got to take over the game. The Raptors need this win. I got to put the team on my back, like you talked about, being a superhero, being the leader of the squad, seeing how vocal he was too, talking to new guys, talking to Jackson at the free throw line. That's a great sight to see of a guy who's bought into Darko's system and what the team needs from him. But man, the way he was able to, catch the rebound, and unlike other bigs in this league who quickly look for the point guard or who dribble it right away, you see a guy like Scottie have that awareness to kick it up ahead. You saw Mama wide open for the leak out and the dunk. But those are just plays that I think a lot of people take for granted but don't understand how special they are, and those points really, really matter. But again, man, seeing him just, not be afraid of the moment and not be afraid of any defender that was put in front of him, I think is just something that we continue to see from a guy like Scottie Barnes, who's going to be an all-star on here, and rightfully so.
Yeah, like watching that third quarter, you could just see in like real time where that something clicked in his head where he's like, these guys can't guard me. And I thought that was really important for the confidence of not just himself, but for the Raptors. In the first half specifically, I felt like there was a lot of these bailout passes really late, like deep into the paint, where they just were, I thought they were giving Jay Huff way too much credit as a shot blocker. He's good, he has good size, and he's physical, but guys were trying to just kind of kick the ball out at the last second instead of going up strong through. It led to a couple turnovers. The Raptors, I believe, had 11 turnovers in the first half, and we're going to talk a bit more about that later in that adjustment. But I think when Scottie was showing the rest of his teammates that, like, we don't need to keep kicking the ball out every single time. Let's go up strong. Let's get to the basket. And when he started just dunking and scoring on these guys at the rim, again, that was a moment for not that didn't just click for him, it clicked for the rest of his teammates. And that goes back to this thing that we've talked about the last couple of shows, Duane. It's leadership. That loss to Timberwolves, that was the big topic coming out of it. There was not a ton of leadership from Scottie and BI and some of their main guys there towards the end of that game. But then you saw it against the Bulls where Brandon Ingram took over that game because he knew that's what the team needed. Scottie Barnes said it after this game, I was doing what the game demanded. And tonight in this game, what demanded from him was being that leader and finding his scoring punch to show the rest of the guys that we can attack these guys and get to the rim. I believe the Raptors were actually down in pain points after the first quarter. By the end of the second quarter, it was even. It was like 22-20 in favor of the Raptors. By the end of the third quarter, the Raptors had nearly a 10-point advantage at points in the paint. And I think that was a lot of what Scottie Barnes was able to accomplish as a leader. It's what he was able to do for the rest of his guys and getting them going. Like you said, he was finding his own offense, but also feeding his teammates. That full court pass to Mamu right before the end of the quarter was on a dime. We're talking about the Super Bowl. It's Sunday. He looked like a prime quarterback out there, dishing it to Mamu there for a touchdown. So it was a special game from him. And again, that's why he's your all-star.
That's exactly why he's your all-star. And man, you talk about the offense, but how many times I feel like I sound like a broken record, but his defensive awareness is super incredible. I mean, again, I'm not sure if Indiana watched any game film, but they kept trying Scottie at the rim as if he was he's not one of the premier shot blockers in the NBA this season right now. And I don't know if he has a sponsorship with Windex or whatever, but he was cleaning the glass OD today. I mean, the emphatic blocks were just some that were literally served as an outlet to the fast break and the transition points on the other end, which I thought was dope because the Raptors obviously 29 team assists and then obviously 34-9 in the fast break department, so playing fast. But that is all due to Scottie being a presence in the lane, literally blocking shots and starting fast breaks off of his defense. So again, Scottie doing it on both ends, and you love when he gets into those modes where he's super dominant. You mentioned the points in the paint, and that's all because Scottie did not settle. We didn't see any mid-range turnarounds in the second half. We didn't see any, three-pointers at the end of the shot clock by Scottie or anything. He just went to head down to the basket. You're not going to take a charge. Okay, I'm going to put this shoulder into you until you hold that. And he kept getting to the basket at will. And we love seeing that because it ignites the rest of the team as well. And then obviously, the more Scottie's able to attack the basket and score and be efficient at that, then the defense will continue to collapse. And that's where you get the kickouts for guys like Quickly, guys like Shed, who are making threes as well today. So again, shout out to Scottie for just being super intentional and being a leader, like you said, putting the team on his back and ensuring the Raptors got this win today.
Yeah, he willed them to victory in that third quarter, and I think that was absolutely the turning point of this game. That's his 24th double-double of the season, which leads the Raptors. It was also the 103rd double-double of his career, which passes Pascal Siakam for fifth all-time on the Raptors franchise leaderboard. Again, doing it against Pascal, and like you said, by using some of his own moves against him with that spin, I think Scottie Barnes really does live up for this matchup, and it was awesome to see. But as we continue this episode of the Raptors Postcast, Duane and I are going to talk about more of the Raptors' special third quarter efforts and how they turn things around coming out of halftime. And then we're going to hand out our player of the game as we continue the Raptors Postcast. All right, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And this week, Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game. Live in the app right now. Drake May just needs one passing yard for the max discount to win. Add another player to your lineup, and if your pick hits, you can cash in. Prize Picks is super simple to use. It takes no time to get started. The whole format is clean. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections. And I also love that you can follow Prize Picks partners like us, and you can tail or fade our picks right from the feed. I'm expecting a big game from Jackson Smith and Jigba, or as he's now called, the Emerald City Route Artist. So download Prize Picks today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 off in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, this episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple, and that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. And like Duane mentioned, the fans tonight in Scotiabank Arena were rocking. They always get up for this matchup when Pascal Siakam is back in town, and it was great. And you can be there too, because it's simple when you pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming game, and have tickets locked in within a couple of minutes. You see the all-in price up front, and you can even check the view from your seat, so there's no surprises when checking out. And you can also check out zone deals, where you choose a section and Game Time selects your seats. Everything about the process is quick, intuitive, and stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. So download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. And lastly, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. February can be a lot. Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and so much talk about relationships. And it can honestly feel like everyone else has their life together when it comes to their love life. But here's the truth. Whether you're married, dating, single, or just focusing on you, most people are still figuring it out. And no matter where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. And it's easy to assume that everyone else has the perfect relationship, but most people are always working through something. Therapy can help you recognize patterns that might be weighing relationships down, whether that's communicating better, setting healthier boundaries, and no longer carrying everything alone. And even if you're not in a relationship right now, therapy can help you feel more confident in what you want moving forward. So BetterHelp has licensed therapists in the US, and they do initial matching work for you. You can focus on your goals, and if you want to switch therapists, you can do that at any time. So sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BETTERHELP.com/lockedonnba. All right, as we continue this episode of the Raptors Postcast, be sure to check out Sean Woodley with Locked On Raptors in the morning to get more in-depth analysis of the Raptors' 122-104 win. And now we're going to hand it back off to Duane, our resident pro, on some of his observations from this game.
All right, this afternoon's Take Notice segment for today is tidying up. So the Raptors, man, valuing the basketball. Yes, the Raptors play out a TO, but that doesn't mean that they have to necessarily commit so many TOs. In the first half, they had 10 or 11 turnovers, which is not the best. And at halftime, they definitely talked it over, and they came back, made some substantial adjustments. And you can see that. How do you take care of the rock? Well, it's simple. You simplify things. You flatten the floor. You take the ball out of traffic. You refrain from leaving your feet and making these passes when you're stuck in these moments of indecision. And the Toronto Raptors had to shift their mentality from hope passes to passes with purpose. And that's what they did. They were really, empty pick and rolls. They were more dribble handoffs. They weren't just getting into the lane and trying to, like you said, do those little shovel passes or kick it out in moments of stress. They were just more decisive about what they were doing and being more aggressive. And we know that Indiana loads up at the paint and they're very aggressive. So being pesky and being on the ball, how do you combat that? The Raptors punish that by having better spacing, by making smarter passes, and by not having no hero reads. You don't have to make the home run plays. You just got to, do what you got to do by possession and chip away in order to get that lead. And I think the Raptors, there's so many benefits for them, winning the possession battle, right? Because fewer turnovers means that you can actually set your defense. And the Raptors are really good at doing that because that's where they wreak havoc, especially in the third quarter. And they kind of flip the script. And now the Indiana Pacers are turning the ball over at a higher level. I think they had 19 turnovers over that cases, and that's because of the Raptors' activity. But doing that really allows the Raptors to get out into transition. And when you get onto transitions, you're able to get these 3-on-2 advantages where you're able to make the easier passes and refrain from giving the ball away. So again, the Raptors getting out, playing fast, it's like a layup drill out there. It was a layup line. Felt like we were in the warm-ups. And that's a good sight to see instead of playing against half-court defense where they're a little bit more liable to, whether it's watching BI go to work or turning the ball over because they're indecisive. So, again, the Raptors tidying up that issue for them in the second half, I think, is the main reason as to why they're able to keep the lead, hold the lead, and run away with the game.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think it's an understated part about what turning over the ball does to harm a team, especially offensively. It forces them to have to slow down because they have to get back and be on defense. Then they want to bring up the ball, the possession slower because they're worried about turning it over again. And it's this compounding effect. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Raptors had only 2 fast break points in the first quarter and then only 11 at halftime because they had 11 turnovers. They had 11 turnovers on 11 assists at halftime for 11 fast break points. They finished this game 34-9 in terms of an advantage in fast break points, and they have 12 assists on 0 turnovers in the third quarter alone. Like, I know those just sound like numbers, but it's indicative of, like you said, they're taking care of the ball, and because they're allowed to push it forward, they're allowed to get into their offense faster. The confidence is building, and they're simplifying things in terms of what they're able to do offensively, and all of it just adds to itself. So for them to tidy that stuff up in the third quarter, I think was a big part of why they were able to turn this game down. Again, obviously Scottie Barnes led the charge in that department, but it also speaks to this trend for the Raptors where third quarters have been really kind to them. You mentioned it, another 40-point third quarter. I believe that was their third time scoring 40 or more points in the third quarter, and they've only done it 7 times in any game this season. So over half of them have come in the third quarter, which is pretty awesome. And the Raptors are 6th in third quarter scoring in the NBA. They're 5th in net rating. And they definitely added that to that tonight because they finished plus 18 in the third quarter. I know it sounds simple to be like they're having these conversations where they're adjusting or whatnot, but like as a player, you've been in situations, you go into the locker room at halftime and coach or people are saying like, we know we can be better, but like what really is that mindset coming out of halftime where you can hit a different gear like this?
Well, I'm not sure what other sports do, but I know for basketball, one of the most common and popular sayings, especially going into halftime, is 0-0. The score is 0-0. It doesn't matter if we're up, doesn't matter if we're down. It's a new life. There's 2 more quarters. It's a whole new basketball game. So for the Raptors, that's kind of how they can thrive going forward. When you go into halftime, you could flip the script. You're able to change identity. You're able to dictate the game in a different manner because you go out with a fresh sense of energy, a fresh mindset, and you're able to put together a new game plan and able to adjust and, watch film at halftime now with the new technology and able to do things in real time. So again, as a player going into halftime, you don't ever want to feel or be complacent. If you have the lead, you want to figure out ways of how you can double down on that lead and increase it by a large margin. If you're down, you want to figure out ways on how you can chip away slowly but surely. So again, as a player, you just want to stay calm, steady, and even keel. I think that's what the Raptors did. They didn't panic, and they were able to receive the coaching and be coachable. And I think that's a big thing for the young guys and also just the players in general, just being able to listen to the message from the coaches and apply it onto the court. And when we see that happen, you see the results. So again, as a player going into halftime, you always want to maintain your focus, but coming out, you want to have that new sense of life and urgency when it comes to playing the game.
Yeah, and the Raptors definitely did have that new sense of life and urgency coming out of halftime in this game. They end up coming up with a double-digit victory after being down by 2 points at halftime. The big reason was Scottie Barnes, so I think that's a perfect segue to say let's hand out our player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Yeah, like I don't think we need to even try to debate this one. Duane, 25 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 4 blocks, a plus 22. He finishes 12 of 20 from the field. Like you said, he wasn't settling. He didn't even attempt a 3 tonight. Scottie Barnes was very special in this game. Again, quickly show some love. Again, Mamu had a really good game where he went 6 of 9 at 17 points. RJ Barrett, I think he had a bit of a slow first half, but he did really pick it up, especially getting inside and finishing through contact. He finishes with 20 points. Brandon Ingram had a bit of a quieter game for him with just 13 on 5 of 12 shooting. But overall, again, I don't think we need to belabor the point here. Scottie Barnes was our player of the game. So kind of what I did last time when we knew it was Brandon Ingram. I'll throw it to you for some just final thoughts on this game. The Raptors, again, pick up a quality victory. They're 3-1 on this homestand, and they're going into a tough matchup against the Detroit Pistons next. So what do you make of this game, and what are your final thoughts?
Again, it's always about building confidence. So for me, it was a different type of game, right? Playing at 3 p.m. I think Alvin Williams mentioned on the broadcast, guys usually probably waking up from their pregame naps around this time or getting ready to head to the arena. So for them just to adjust their whole day and mindset and game day routine, I think was incredible for them to take advantage of that and also be sound and locked in mentally for the game. But going forward, just continue to build that confidence of trusting each other, playing with pace, I think needs to be the theme for the Raptors, taking care of the basketball, but playing with pace. Again, we saw them shoot the ball, not too, not a high volume from the three-point line, but they made some shots. When the Raptors are able to make at least a couple of threes, and then you mix it in with the team assists, with the free throws, and then obviously transition points and the points in the paint, it's going to be a tough team to stop, and they can go against anybody, I feel like, in this league, whether it's the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference. So again, taking that fuel as motivation going forward, understanding that they want to protect their home court, and also understanding they're not trying to be punked in the paint, and being dominant and showing other teams that they do have that fearlessness and that nature, I think is going to be something they need to take going forward. So the Raptors just building on that confidence and that trust is what is going to be the key thing for them.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Like you said, when they play like this, they can hang with just about any team in the league, and we're going to have to see them do it a whole lot more because they got some tough matchups coming up. But for today, that does it for us. For myself, Zulfi, Sheikh, and Duane Notice. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live and for those listening the morning after. If you haven't already, please make sure you like and subscribe to Locked On Raptors on all platforms. And don't forget to comment below if you have any thoughts on this impressive victory for the Raptors. But we'll be back on Wednesday live after the Raptors host the #1 seeded Detroit Pistons for the first time this season. So that'll be a very good measuring stick matchup for them. And we will see you then breaking it all down on the Raptors postcast. Peace.